Give me a second. Serves me right for being a jerk. Make you guys wait. Don't worry. I'm not going to make you wait much longer. So, here we go. Let's talk about 7-6 complex numbers. We haven't really talked about complex number yet. We've only talked about imaginary. So, complex number has two parts. It's got a real part and it's got an imaginary part. And that's what makes it complex. So, the typical format or the standard form of it for complex is going to look like this. A plus, and then this is the imaginary part, B, I. Notice this part has the I. So we kind of like I said, if you're viewing it as like a variable, kind of like helps out there, okay? Because like you have a number without a variable and a number with a variable, all right? But in this case, it's a number without an imaginary part and a number with an imaginary part. So an example of that would just be something like, I don't know, 3 plus 2i. Or it could be like 3 minus 2i. So why do we need to know that? Well, on the SATs or any high stakes test, they're going to have a question like this. (3x minus the square root of negative 25 equals negative 6 plus 3yi. Okay? So there's going to be a question like this. It's not probably going to be the exact one. But what is this asking you to do? It's asking you to kind of figure out what x and what y are. In order to do that, okay, you got to like break this side down to make it look somewhat like that side. And you'll see what I mean. Okay, now each side needs to look like A plus BI. Okay, this side looks like A plus BI, but this side does not because of that square root. So let's break down that square root. Well, that's going to be just 5 and 5. So this is going to be 3x minus 5i. Okay? Equals negative 6 plus 3yi. Now, you're probably like, what is even going on here? All right, well, this is why it's on the SATs and whatnot. Well, notice here, these two pieces, these blue pieces, okay, these pieces are my A. They're my real part. So they must be equal. So 3x must equal negative 6. So x must equal negative 2. Now these pieces must be my BI pieces. Well, that just means that they're equal. So negative 5i equals 3yi. Now, the i's don't really matter here because I'm breaking it up. They both have i's. I don't really need them. Okay? They're both my imaginary part. So y is just equal to negative 5/3. So that's how you do that problem. If you haven't figured out where we're at, we're still in 7-6. We're on the back of the page. And now we're about to kind of work through the bottom 4 questions. So now up in the top hand corner, I'm going to keep up there this A plus BI. That's my complex part. Okay? So up here, I got this now. So not only do I have the square root of -1 as I, but I also have my complex standard form as a plus bi. So now when I'm doing question number 1, okay, and don't worry, it's really not that hard. I know it's weird to be kind of learning about it in this format, but I have faith in you guys, okay? So notice, like here, I'm going to make it a little easier for you guys. So this is the problem. I'm going to give you guys some color. This is my real part. This is my big, or my imaginary part. So when I do this times this, and this times this, I'm going to have two different pieces. I'm going to have the real piece, which is -10. Where am I getting that? Well, 5 times -2 is -10. And where do I get this back half? Well, that's just 5 times I. And again, I'm viewing it as kind of a variable type of deal. I'm treating it as such. That's just 5i. Because if that was an x, it would just be 5x. So now it's just 5i. So that's the first one. Let's look at the second one. Okay? Now the second one's a little bit trickier because it says 2 plus 3i times -6 minus 2i. All right, so now I'm going to FOIL this. Again, I'm just going to kind of treat it as like variables and whatnot. So I'm going to do this times this. That's going to be -12. That times that, well, that's -4i. -18i. Okay. 3i times -6 is -18i. And this can be where it gets a little tricky. Okay? So 3 times -2 is -6. But if that was an x, what would x times x be? Well, Dan? Dylan? Yeah, it would be I squared. So this is going to be I squared. Now we haven't talked about that, but I didn't need to talk about it. Okay? I know what it is. Okay? I'm going to use this little fact up here. All right? So first off, let's simplify this, and then I'll deal with that at the end. -12 can't simplify it. But -4 and -18, that's -22. Now let's deal with this. All right? And to show you that I'm doing a little work off on the side, I'm just going to talk about I equals the square root of -1. Now I need to know what I squared is. So what if I were to square each side here? I squared would equal, well, square roots and squaring, they undo each other. So I squared is just -1. Huh. That's a little fun fact. So let's write that up here. I squared equals -1. So now when I come down here and I deal with this part, well, I have I squared is -1. So this is -6 times -1. So this is -12 minus 22i plus 6. Well, that just equals, if I combine those, -6 minus 22i. Okay? So, little trick. Okay, not bad. We can handle this. We can do it. All right? All right, so let's look at number 3. Number 3's got a lot going on. But number 3, I actually like these problems more than, the square root problems. So you'll see what I mean. -6 minus -2 plus 9i plus -8 plus 4i. All right, well, this is Nice and simple here, okay? Most of you guys are probably like, whoop, there's no way it's simple. Well, notice this piece, and this piece are all numbers that don't have the imaginary part. They don't have the I. So first thing I might want to do, all right, make my life a little bit easier, would be change the sign of these two because I'm subtracting. So plus 2i minus 9 minus 8 plus 4i. I'm just rewriting this back half because it was positive. But now here, this doesn't have an I. This doesn't have an I. Oops, miswrote that. There we go. That doesn't have an I. So now I got 6 plus 2 is 8 minus 8 is 0. They cancel. Gone. Found. All right. Now I have this has an I and this has an I, so I can combine them. So this whole thing boils down to negative 5i. All right. Last one I'm going to do here, okay, before I guys have you do part trace, not tray, part trace. See what I did there, Trey? I got your attention. Knew you weren't paying attention. I'm on to you. All right, here we go. So number 4 is 1 plus I squared. So what do I do here? Well, this means I'm going to write it twice. And now I'm going to treat it just like I did number 2. So I'm going to do 1 times 1. That's 1. 1 times I is 1i. Typically, I don't need that, Liam, but I'm going to put that in there to make my life a little easier for you guys. I times 1, 1i. And I times I, I'm going to write it as I squared so you guys can see what I'm doing here. Now I have 1 plus 1i is 2 i's. And I squared is negative 1. That cancels with that, so the whole answer is just 2i. Now what I want you guys to do is go on WebAssign and do WebAssign 7.6 Part 3.